Should we start?
Yes, yes.
Please.
Okay, so I'll just share my screen now. And if I can have a confirmation around that it's
Yes, sir.
viewable.
It is visible.
Perfect. So, guys, hello, good evening, everyone. I know it's a Saturday evening and you might not want to be here. Technically, you might want to be somewhere else enjoying yourself. But yes, please bear with me for about an hour. And I'm sure that you will find it useful. Okay, so then this is what the first few slides is what I really believe in. If you don't know where you're going, literally any road will take you there. So it's very important to have the focus and where you're going. You need to know where you want to go. And if you know the destination, but do not know how to do there, being agile and applying course corrections at all point of time will certainly get you there, which means that you will achieve your end goals in your life, in your organization, in whatever activity that you do. Okay, so the fact of today, there is more disruption that is being seen in the industry across, and the newer generations, if we have observed, they are thinking parallelly a lot, and they're able to give out-of-box solutions in a very different way. And hence it is predicted that about 60% of the Fortune 1000 companies around the world will go out of business in the next 10 to 20 years, unless they change their SEMs or transform themselves to achieve the business goals. So this being said, let's now enter into what it is. So we'll get into leading and managing organizations for the future. So before I get into it, I love a very interactive session, but unfortunately in the mode that we are working today, we might not have that. But it is very important to understand the difference between leading and managing. And we invariably tend to mix both the words very effectively, I should say. So before I really get into it, I would really want to differentiate between the two words, because that's when it forms the crux of all the further discussions that we would be having during the session today. So who is a leader? If we have to define a leader, leader is a person who strategizes, who sets the vision for any activity that needs to be done. And manager is a person who executes on that vision. And he manages the activity to make the vision happen. So that's the distinction that is there between these two roles. And it is very important for an organization to understand this, and the individuals who are performing the role to understand this. So based on this discussion, let me get further. So when we say that 60% of the organizations are destined to fail, why are we saying this? We are saying this because organizations that we have been fine-tuned for efficiency, and we all say, okay, today this is what is happening. What do we see happening tomorrow? We want that predictability to come in, and that is where the failure will occur. What we are doing is today we are doing predictions on linear growth models, but that is not what the future is really into. We are talking about scarcity of mindsets, but we are rapidly moving towards a lot of abundance. All the people that are coming out of the colleges and the business schools that we are seeing, the thought process that they are running with, which we are talking about, like the youngsters are able to do parallel thinking, They are able to talk about multiple solutions. They are talking about a lot of entrepreneurship. Those things will start impacting us. So what should be done? We need to rapidly change ourselves, to unlearn and then learn, and based on the learning, execute. That's what we should be looking at. What will happen with this is the people who are outside business, like I'm talking about GNFC as an organization, maybe people who are outside organization will start disrupting this because they are coming out with new ideas. And if I'm not agile, I'm not looking at a business, I'm looking at in a traditional way, then the people out there will actually start taking up my market share. And finally, for business to survive, we need to take care of a market share. Today, we would have heard that the information is the gold of today's world. And rapidly, that information we see would be available freely. So when that information is available freely, every person who is interested would be in a better position to make decisions. And that's what we call democratization of information, resulting into decision making, which will further create disturbance and disruption in the industry. Now, the other interesting thing to take care is move away from the traditional sales model, where we tend to sell something to a customer and just sell and forget concept. We have to go to a service model where we start continuously engaging with the customer and we make sure that the customer satisfaction is achieved. So we have already started seeing this subscription model being pushed heavily and the service model being coming in. AWS is a great example where till few years back, we really didn't know anyone something like Amazon Web Services to be there. And now we have a big cloud service which is there, which has totally disturbed the data center business, whoever was running in a small way. Now, why do we see this as a problem with the organizations? Organizations who have been big and who have sustained for last 30, 40 years, they have landed up with a lot of inertia. There's a mindset, there's a hierarchy which has got set within the organizations, which is not allowing the organizations to change that rapidly. And interestingly, if we observe the organizational structure, we would see the seniors who are the typical gray head like me, who are there up in the hierarchy, and they have certain beliefs. We have certain beliefs by which we run the organization. And if we continue to run this organization the same way, we are actually creating barriers for the growth of the organization. And the inertia even goes further. So what should we do? If we believe that we as an organization can start churning ourselves, turning ourselves, yes, that can be done. But traditionally, or if I should possibly not use the word traditional now, but what we see is with the seniors up there with certain mindsets, the change in business model would be difficult. So what is really suggested is you create a different entity about yourself outside your existing business. And that entity starts working in the way, in the new business models that you would want to. And when it is successfully proven, you start a cultural mix back into your parent organization with all the caveats. Otherwise, it is very difficult to challenge the status quo that is there in the organizations. And this would really lead up to a lot of startups coming in, maybe by parent organizations, maybe by entrepreneurs who are there. So typically in our MBA courses, we would have heard about an organization should have a vision, a mission statement. Yes, that is good. But what we should start moving towards is a massively transformational purpose, or what we call as MTP, which drives the whole team. Because now what we are talking about is not big teams. Automation is happening. Automation is helping organizations, and smaller cohesive teams delivering the end result for the organization, because they can understand what is the purpose of the organization, and they being young, they aspire to deliver what needs to be delivered for the organization growth to achieve the end goal. Now, for this to happen, there are certain thought processes where I could propose what we have, the 10th thing that will create an exponential growth, what I call as scale and ideas. Now, what is scale and ideas? These are not just two words. We will elaborate on them. So, scale is staff on demand. We are talking more about services that are coming in. We are talking about community and crowd involvement. We are talking about algorithms. That's where we are talking about AIs coming in. Artificial intelligence a lot. We are talking about leveraging the assets that are available around, like Airbnb is a classical case. Uber is a case. I'm not sure how many of us have heard a concept of blah blah cars. Because if you see, Uber is still talking about you need to have a tourist license on the vehicle. But blah blah cars go beyond that. As a private car owner, I can consume my vehicle and I can have people travel with me. We are talking about ideas where we are talking about seamless integrations between all facets of industry. We are talking about real-time MIS. There used to be a time where the data used to flow in after a few days and people used to take decisions. But interestingly, the decisions that were then implemented did not achieve the right results, because there's certain amount of time that has passed from the data that was measured and the implementation of the actions that are being taken. Now, using cloud, using analytics, we are talking about data lakes being formed, data sources are there which are giving you real-time MIS and which enable the decision makers at all levels to take the right business decisions. Now, when we are doing this, one needs to be aware that when quick decisions are taken, you are possibly taking decisions which might not have complete information around it. So whatever you land up doing is you are starting to experiment and you are you're continuously iterating on the ideas to deliver business. And that is what should now get engraved into us as leaders, as managers, as people on ground in all levels, so that we're able to deliver what is needed. Now, one might ask that yes, we are discussing about leaders, we are discussing about managers, so they are supposed to be very high up in the organization. I believe, I really believe that that time is over. Everyone, whoever can perform that role, even at the lowest level, they are doing that role. They are managing things. They are taking strategy decisions at that level itself. If I talk about my company, even the person who is a developer starts taking decisions on his own as to how he wants to code, how he wants to do things, how is he going to design the system. And that's the leverage that we are offering. So he's doing his experimentations, he's reiterating, and that's authority that is available with those guys. But yes, that needs to be controlled, and that's where we are talking about learning and iterating and taking things forward. With the social media coming in, everyone around is listening, everyone around is learning, everyone around is engaging with each other. So the amount of information that is available and the ideas that are getting generated is very high. And to control that, you need to manage it while strategies are being set around it. So if we enable the social media to our benefit for engaging and generating ideas at the first level, will certainly help. And that's where the second point up here, where community and crowd involvement comes in, using social media. So yes, there are many things which are happening around the world, and we can certainly take advantage. So with this, we also see that the economics is changing, whether it's microeconomics at an organization level or macroeconomics at a country level, which is actually pushing the businesses to innovate and take it to next level. We have been running through this pandemic, we all know, and majority of the businesses have been cribbing, saying that they have gone out of business. But interestingly, if you see, there are some businesses which have really flourished. For example, you might want to use a sanitizer business. Sanitizer businesses have gone way above. You have the paper towel business, which has gone up. You have the weaved, what should I say? We have this material which is not really from cotton, but it uses cotton fiber, which is used in the gowns which the doctors are wearing. Now we are even seeing even the security guards using them to save them from COVID. So there are multiple things which are happening. You would see that even the thermometer sale has decently gone up, those point and shoot infrared thermometers. So yes, economic paradigms are changing, businesses are changing, but that is what is the real thing. We need to understand the realities on ground and also see that it is necessitating the change within us. That is what the leadership or the leaders need to sense. And based on that, they need to put the actions in place. The classical example, another one which I can quote out here, is we, as an IT industry, we were always wary about work from home. Typically, the Indian industry, like the TCSs and the Infosys of the world. But during this pandemic, we have actually gone ahead, initiated work from home, and the latest stats that I have is TCS has gone for 75% of its business or people to be working from home because they see that the real estate requirements has gone down now. Their need for the admin has gone down, and lots of things have happened. So the change is actually necessitating the way we look at business. Now, what really happens? What are the typical pitfalls which a leadership sees? What we have is navel grazing, what we call as, where leadership, they have a very myopic view. They just look internally, short-sighted, just maybe 1 or 2 years. And that's not what leadership should be about. We should be talking about 8, 10 years for the business to sustain. We should not be talking about short-term gains. We should all be talking about long-term gains from the strategy perspective. From the management perspective, we could be talking about short-term, but that is again with the view of the long-term. Now, there's another thing which we invariably get into, and that is what I've observed typically as an Indian culture. We don't question. We just take it on face value. But face value could be interpreted in many ways. And if implementation is left to the individuals who have disparate interpretations, the end result is not what the end result that would be achieved is not what is desired really. We also have a tendency to ignore internal strengths. We don't grow people internally. We tend to get external blood into the organizations. Fair enough, it does help, but that also demotivates people. We lack flexibility. We just say, okay, as leaders, we might say, this is my idea, this is how you should do. But no, I really believe that there needs to be a brainstorming. We need to get into SWOT analysis. We need to do all sorts of things to make sure that the business idea that we are going with or the path that we are setting for our business, it is discussed threadbare before it is implemented. Because the firm belief is nobody knows everything. As a team, we will succeed. Now, there's an interesting view when we are talking about human nature in here, because finally, as leaders, we are all humans. As managers, we are humans. And for whatever we say, trying to keep our personal and professional life away, the way we behave, the sentiments that we might have, we should also look at the neurobiological view of business. Now, these are certain things, these are certain questions which I'm trying to raise. As leader, we need to try and understand or try to question, when is the first time I did something good? It's interesting. Quite a few times I will not have any answer to it. And that's where I should start questioning myself whether I really am a leader, whether I'm really thinking in future as to what the business is all about, how I'm trying to grow business. Now, when we are talking about neurobiological view, we are talking about how we are interacting with each other, how we are cooperating with each other, and the resonance that needs to be achieved within the people. Because finally, business end goals are delivered by people, and those goals achieve for business. The growth is achieved by the path that is thread by the individual or as a team to achieve the goal of the business. So, absolutely, collective intelligence is what we should harness to take things forward in business. Now, dwelling a bit deeper onto the neurobiological view, I tend to use, I assume we would have seen the symbol that is the caddis, which is really used in the medical science. Doctors use this. Now, what does this symbol talk about? We are talking about there is a central staff which is there, which is the spine of every human being. There are two serpents. If you count these crisscrosses, there are about 7 crisscrosses, which are the 7 solar and lunar chakras that we have. And 2 serpents, each serpent is actually the energies that we have, the masculine and the feminine energies within individual of us. And based on situations, either of the energies start emphasizing or start taking control of us as an individual. So this is really the caddis. And when we take this caddis and look at with this information, when we look at it from organization perspectives and try to understand the leaders and the managers or as individuals within the organization, we would actually see that when we break this chakras, 7 chakras, we could be getting it into the 4 stages, which is the integral stage of development of an individual in an organization. The first 3 chakras, when we start from bottom, they are basically food, sex, and power. So when I start any activity, I am actually running for food. Okay. Now, then when my food need is done, I go towards sex, and then towards every human being starts longing for power. Once the power is there, that's when I start thinking from heart and my communications start coming in. And then as an individual, I grow into the psychic and the spiritual side of it. So when I reach the top, I am actually at the highest state of consciousness. And that is where, as leaders, we should try and go towards. But interestingly, if we see a structure, if we see our teams, our members, we are rarely able to go beyond stage 1. We always get satisfied with the power that we have on the chair that we are sitting, and that's it. And the problem comes from there. It stems out from there. We don't start taking it forward. We don't start thinking from the team perspective. Yes, we understand it's teamwork, but till the time we don't understand the team members will not synchronize and the team delivery will not happen, so organizations will not grow. Now, there has to be a decent change in thinking that needs to happen for that. And this table is actually talking about what has been the old thinking. I will possibly just pause out here and you guys can read it. There is no intention of going through reading everything of it. But yes, the only guiding light that I can provide out here, this is the old thinking where employees are the biggest risk, or there should be just top-down communication. The new thinking should be that employees are the biggest assets and there should be open communication. And further on, we should be talking about employees are the partners in the journey of life, because finally what we are working is just small part of our life as an individual, and we are rarely able to separate the working life from a personal life. So let's accept it that they are part of it, and employees are working together. We are helping each other, and they become part of my journey of life. And there needs to be honest communication. So this is a brief. I'll just pause for a few seconds out here. Something interesting, you can look into it. But one needs to understand that any point of time, you could be just moving around across the old thinking or the next thinking or new thinking on the various parameters. It is not necessary that you would either be totally into new thinking or totally into next thinking. Now that depends upon our culture from which we have grown up, and the culture that is prevalent in the organization. So while I was speaking in the background, I'll just move forward now. So the top priorities for the leaders in 2020. We are already seeing that it is no time to be just to be average. We have to grow out of our cocoon. We have to break our shells if we have to grow. And as an individual, we have to get that leadership getting inculcated in us as an individual. At every step, we have to demonstrate our leadership capabilities. We have to get those characteristics in ourselves. And that is when we will start growing, and we will be taking the organizations with us, and also in our personal lives, we will be growing. We should be looking like we have this pandemic. We should be continuously on the lookout of new avenues, which could be game changers for us. Gone is the time where we would say that I am from the chemical industry, I'm from a manufacturing. No, you land up being a tech company now. You get so involved in technology, whether at manufacturing level, you could be implementing CNC machines, you could be implementing total robotic controls, you could be implementing IT for multiple things. So you invariably now land up being a technology company in whatever way you're implementing. Now, interestingly, when we are saying this, we also need to understand that businesses don't run on their own. We have people who run business, and we have to take care of them. Without people, businesses will not run. They just don't run automatically. So we have to take care of them, and people will deliver the end results that we seek. We have to be flexible. We have to be agile. There is no alternate to it in the current world that we are seeing. And while we are doing this, we all have aspirations to grow, and we grow beyond our geographical boundaries. And that is where, when you have to create a connect with people, your consumers, it is better to be at that level. Now, this is a concept of communication where you need to understand to whom you're communicating, and you have to go to that level of the recipient when you're speaking. And that's exactly what we are trying to say, that you have to become multi-local, where you as an organization, when you go to your customer believes that you are local to them and not that you are somewhere centralized. And your thinking is way different from the thinking that the consumer actually wants. And that is how we will be able to deliver to the consumers and at a higher level to the society. So these I believe needs to be top priorities. Of course, this after reading and summarizing, this has come in from the BCG, Boston Consulting Group's document on CEO priorities for 2020. So with that, I'm actually out there at the end. There is some more material which I could talk about, but that's where I would leave. So I would be open for questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I think it was a wonderful and eye-opening session, actually, and for the situation. And there are many questions in the chat box already.
Okay.
So I would like to just 1 second. Yeah, there is one question from one gentleman. He's asking, what is the future of Indian startups like Oyo and Zomato, Swiggy, and Byju's? Will they adapt to the dynamic business environment and organizations restructuring, because it is very common in these companies more than established ones?
So will they adapt is a tricky question, I would say, because that is possibly what the leaders or the decision makers are thinking about it. I understand that Byju has just done a M&A with another company last week. So you would certainly see a lot of M&As which are happening, mainly because in the fight for survival, the bigger companies might take small companies up, but does that define the sustenance of bigger companies? No. That is just a stopgap arrangement where they are trying to eliminate business or eliminate competition. But when they have to do their business, if they are not agile, success is not really guaranteed out there. Actually, believe me, from the participants that we have, 63 participants out here, quite a few of us might have ideas which in next 5 years might throw Byju out. So it is a very fertile land right now, I would say, for entrepreneurs to come in and disrupt business, because they are at the least risk. Crowdfunding and VCs are possible today, and you can deliver solutions. The only thing that you might observe is people will just buy you out. So if you can sustain that bit, I'm sure you'll grow bigger.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the participant will be happy with that answer. The next question which we have is how you see the transformation in organization which runs bureaucratic way. For example, government promoted organizations, PSUs.
So, okay. Now like I was during the discussion, I did mention that if we try to transform an existing organization, the inertia is too high. And the decision makers, till the time the mindset out at that level does not change, you would not be able to achieve. So the best way is to have an organization in parallel who delivers with the growth that you're looking. Now, if we talk about specifically about PSUs and government organizations, I'm myself a government promoted organization. Okay. So I know the challenges that we are facing. And when I'm giving this talk to you guys, I know what's happening in the background. It is a real challenge. And that's where the current thought process that the government is running with, where it is trying to disinvest and it is trying to break the thought process that if it is government, you become less answerable, I would say. That is no longer true. The moment you have that responsibility and accountability getting associated with you, with the timelines, you will be able to deliver. So for government and PSUs, yes, it is a humongous task. It is as good as climbing an Everest. But again, nothing is impossible, but it is too far-fetched, I would say.
Okay, thank you, sir. There's another question. Are the stages of development the same as Maslow's law of hierarchical needs? Hierarchical needs, sorry.
Okay, so this is a very interesting one where we are trying to merge the theories that we read to the industry, that the way it is organizing or the way it is growing. So Maslow's law of hierarchical needs is purely on human nature. So believe me, that will still, it will continue to remain the same. There would be no changes in that.
Thank you, sir. There's other question that what are the applications that can use to study the data that is more insightful? You can get more insights from the data. Which are the applications?
So I assume what we are talking about is business intelligence that you want to gain out of it. So there are multiple COTS products available in the market. You could have Tableau, you could have, there are multiple products. But believe me, these products just give data. Intelligence has to be culled out by you as an individual who is reading the data. If you are a technology person who has raised this question, you would understand that I could have a data mart from which I have created the cubes, which are creating this data output into Tableau or any BI tool that I've used. But finally, from that BI tool, the data that has been projected to understand and translate for business is human intelligence, and machine cannot deliver it much to you, even if we are using artificial intelligence to that extent.
Yeah, sir, true. So the next question is, many startups work on a hire and fire model. How can job security, which is nil as of now, be assured in the future for job seekers?
Guys, if you're looking at job security, please join the PSU. Believe me, if you want to grow, you have to be on your toes. You have to deliver things. You have to be up in the market. And if you want job security should be delivered from your performance. You perform well in an organization. If you're delivering to organization, none of the organizations will fire you. But if you believe that I will just enjoy myself, it's not going to happen. That's not what will deliver you job security. So guys, focus on your performance and the byproduct will be a job security.
Sir, one interesting question, that is this new normal? Any insights to how we can restore our business as soon as possible?
So you want to restore the business. I assume the impact is due to pandemic.
The lost business, actually the businesses which have been now, because of them, they have stopped the business, or maybe they have paused right now. So how to restore them after?
Okay. So business at a higher level has two entities. You are either a service provider or producer, and there's an end consumer. So take care of your customers, deliver them service, and your business will come back to you. Yeah, as business, our aim should be customer satisfaction and growth in customer satisfaction. The moment I am able to deliver that, or you are able to deliver that, you are creating a brand value for yourself. And brand is what sells today and will continue to sell in the market. So create a brand for yourself.
Yeah. So next question is that how experienced leader can contribute better than the new generation?
Okay. So I assume when you say in the caption experienced leader, leader is still a leader, and all the attributes of the leader of being agile are there. Assuming that is the scenario, yes, the agile, experienced leader will give you the right path to move forward based on his experience and the information and the and basically the experience that he's churned and crystallized out, which a person who is just come out of academics might not have. So the learning curve might be higher in terms of the new entrepreneurs, whereas the experienced leader would certainly be multi steps up in delivering.
Thank you,
But
sir.
certainly as a caveat, they need to be a leader for today.
True, true. So they are these leaders, they have to act like a change agents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that, one last question, can we take that, sir?
Certainly.
What would be the best approach to leading and managing with the inevitable corruption issues in India?
Okay. So you need to define your business priorities, guys. If your business priorities is pushing things through, no matter what is your end goal? That is basically driving the whole thing. If your end goal is to take business by hook or crook, you will certainly support corruption. But if you decide, and as an individual, you might say that whatever Sanjay is saying right now, it is purely theoretical. But it is only, I certainly believe that it is only when we all come together, we will be able to fight corruption. As an individual, if you try to do that, it is really difficult. And from a businessman's perspective, from a business perspective, you could be on the losing side unless you have a person of a similar thought process on the other side of the table with you. So it is a difficult challenge. But I do see that the scenarios are changing. There is support which is coming through. Of course, again, there's a lot of inertia. Change is taking its own time. So we would have to bear with it.
One relevant question that actually nowadays the organizations are like firing experienced people in the name of pandemic and restructuring and cost cutting in this thing, and they're hiring young and new generation with having lower experience and less salary. So is this trend going to continue, or is just an example of change, or just being opportunist?
I would really use the last one, being an opportunist, because all the managers, now I would use the word managers, it is getting difficult for them to prove that they are able to contribute to the organization this year when the revenues are really down. So the way to control the revenues, because your income is dropping drastically, the only way to control is the expenditure. And to control the expenditure, there are multiple ways. You could be controlling your fixed cost, which is typically your salaries and the infrastructure that you have built in, your office space. So it is not just removing experienced people. You would also see organizations leaving the business spaces. They are vacating spaces. They are selling off spaces, mainly because they want to control the revenue. So yes, from my perspective, it is a stopgap, but the businesses will see an adverse impact of this in short time, mainly because they would be losing the experience that is there, which they would not be able to harness.
Of course, I think the employees which are being there for longer time, they will be like an asset to the company.
Right, certainly, but asset only if they are performing well.
Yeah.
If they are not performing, they become liabilities.
Yes, true, true. One last question, if time permits, sir.
Certainly, go ahead.
how value chain process from product to customers, that is from fertilizers to farmers, would help to survive in the future of the business?
I'm sorry, I missed the second word in there.
Yeah, how value chain process from product to customers, that is from fertilizers to farmers, example, would help to survive in future of the business?
Possibly I need to understand this question a bit better, because when we are talking about value chain analysis and looking at the whole value chain, the value has not changed for the product for what it delivers. If we take fertilizer as a business, I'm producing my fertilizers, and when it goes to the farmer, it is still delivering the same value to the farmer, right? Because if he doesn't give those fertilizers into the field, his crops will not grow as what is expected. So the value continues to remain the same. So I'm actually trying to understand as to what is the real question behind it.
I think he wants to, the participant may want to like to know about what is the, how we can serve with the value chain process, how that impact would be on the value chain process in for the future of the business, so for the sustainability of the business, maybe. Maybe so, that is the question.
Maybe possible. When you look at a high level, there is a producer, a company who is manufacturing fertilizers. We have an intermediary to whom we give, and finally the end consumer, who is the farmer. Now, I'm sure at both the ends of the value chain, they are safe. The only person who could be questioning this is the person in between, who is doing trading of the fertilizer company and giving it to the farmer. So yes, from that perspective, again, one is if you're dealing with quality product, that is the brand value that you're running with. And if you have taken care of your customers, I don't really see an impact onto your business. Specifically, if I'm talking about fertilizers, there could be some industries which could be going bad. For example, like I'll give an example of what happened yesterday. I went to a store to take a cover for my mobile phone. Okay. Now I have a certain model. Now the person tells me that for last few months, no new mobile cover has come in, and what I have is an old one. Now, how do you take that as a comment? And I don't have choice as a customer. So certainly his business would get impacted. Now, what is the root cause of that business getting impacted? If I go into it, typically mobile covers are manufactured in China. And there is a big, if I can use the word, agitation, or as a community, business community, we are talking about stopping Chinese products. So till that time, Indian companies don't come up with similar mobile covers or competing mobile covers, there would be a business impact, certainly.
Okay.
So it would pretty much be dependent on the industry, I would say.
I think.
And where in the value chain you lie.
Yeah. I think the participant may be answered about it. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So with that, I will end the Q&A here, and I will hand over the session to Mr. Ashish Joshi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ashish sir, can you please unmute yourself? 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanjay bhai, for giving insight to the new subject, basically. And I must thank you to the participants also, who have raised very, very relevant questions and which is being answered by Sanjay bhai very satisfactorily. Thank you so much, Sanjay bhai, once again. On behalf of Ahmedabad Management Association, I'm thankful to you. And we are thankful to the participants also. AMA is looking forward to meet you again in the days to come. Thank you so much. Thanks to all. Thank you.
So big thanks to you all for giving me an opportunity to speak to you guys and share my thoughts with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Nair Sahib is also here. KK Nair Sahib has expressed deep sense of thank you to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate giving me an opportunity out here.
Yeah, we'll be, sir. Thank you.
Looking forward to meet again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Radhika. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
sir.
Radhika, thanks for coordinating it well for me.
No. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you once again from entire team of AMA. Thank you, Ashish, sir. With your permission, I will end the meeting now.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you all participants for being with us.
Wishing for all well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Take
Have
care.
a good evening.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good evening.